Hello everybody, bienvenido a todo. Welcome back to Valbrut with me, Valbrut, and we are, well, as you can see, we're back in BeamNG.Drive for another base model challenge. And well, as you can see, the car of choice for the first time trial is an MG ZS, apparently also known as an MG Astor in India. And this is a 1.5. I don't know if it's got a turbo. I don't know. I feel like their 1.5 is a 4 cylinders, so maybe it wouldn't need a turbo, and I don't know. I don't know. I haven't got a clue. And just as a reminder, our top 5 is looking. It's still very overwhelmingly Germanic, but it's not so BMW anymore. So, so top 5, fifth place is a BMW 5 Series. From the late 80s, early 90s. Then we have the Skoda Superb from the, I don't know when this one's from. It's a very ugly car, but it's fourth. And we also have the sort of noughties 5 Series, I guess, and that is third. And then in the last video, I managed to get into second, almost get that past that 10-second barrier with a Mercedes 220 diesel. And first is still that 520 5 Series diesel. Both champagne. Maybe I should color this MG champagne and I'd do well. But yeah, let's go for it and let's see. We'll see. I mean, the Dacia Duster is 6th, I think. So off-roaders can do all right. That's a 1.6 naturally aspirated. So depending on, I guess, if this 1.5 has a turbo, it might not be as fast. But it's a more modern car, and I think because pretty well equipped as well. So maybe it's just a better. Well, it certainly doesn't get off the line very fast. Manual gearbox. I'm not changing the gears though. The game is. I have played it manual when I was learning to drive, actually, just as a kind of. But because I mean, you have to go up and down the gears in sequence, so it's not as easy as driving a real car with a gear stick, where you can just switch from second to fourth or switch down from fifth to second in one fell swoop. Now, I'm still trying to keep my lesson learned from the last video, where the worst thing I can do is crash the car. So going super slow is better than crashing the car around a corner, because I will, if I crash the car, then I will hamper my performance for the rest of the race. That's kind of the point of this game, because like, I'm just in case you're not familiar with BeamNG.Drive. It simulates real crashes as much as it can. I think the engine it's based on is quite old now, so like, you can see the graphics aren't great, but I think it kind of does, like, it gives you the tools. It's called a J-beam. That's where the game gets its name from, which allows you to simulate like real damage. So the risk of this, as you've seen, and if you've seen any of my previous videos, is that if I crash, it will do irreparable damage to the car. And that can severely hamper the times. Now, I'm becoming a bit strict on it, and like, if I think that, like, if it happens very early in the race, it'll just be boring watching me trying to go around at like 50 miles an hour. So, I am getting to a point where now I'm like, yeah, that is a risk, but I also don't want this to be really boring. So, within reason, I'll just start again if I really damage the car. And some of the more modern cars, I don't know if this will have it, but like, if you crash, they just shut down the engine, so you can't actually carry on anyway. But anyway, that's just a recap of like how the logic of this game and my little videos work. This MG is I have to say it's a surprisingly handsome car. It's the previous generation of ZS now. They just released a new one, which is better looking. I remember when I first saw this, actually, because I think they announced it in like 2017, and then sometime around 2018 it started coming out in the UK. And then I didn't see many of them, and then I moved to Spain, and then I think I didn't see many of them here, but then suddenly, like 3 years ago, they just exploded and they're everywhere. Like sort of how the Dacia Duster did. It just started out like you probably would never have known it was a car, and then suddenly they're everywhere. And I think that's basically MG as a brand. Well, no, obviously because MG existed for like 60 years and then disappeared because MG Rover went bankrupt. But the new version of MG that is now Chinese owned, and it's basically all the cars are, I think, for the most part, they're designed and built in China, and the MG is just a badge. But I think they have some like residual design school or design workshop in Longbridge where the MG Rover business used to be. Okay, well, I made it around that corner. Now, not to get overcompensate coming around this one. Slow down. Oh! So yeah, I think they still got some business interest in the UK that helps them designing cars or refining them for Europe, maybe. But they are based. I mean, MG just this car would have been. It's designed and built in China. For the most part, I would say. Most people would consider it a Chinese car, not a British car, just because it has an MG badge on it. But like they literally sort of re-announced themselves. So I remember they introduced themselves to I think the UK and Australia in the early 2010s with a couple of very. I don't remember the cars getting very good reviews. I think it was the MG3, the MG6 was the first one, which was like a sort of Skoda Octavia sized car, similar shape, looked a bit like a first gen Mondeo, but a bit more modern. And then they brought out the MG3 a few years later, which was a super mini, but a very kind of odd looking one, looked like a Suzuki, really. And neither of them were particularly well sort of marketed or anything like that. And I think they only sold them in right-hand drive in Europe, so they were sold in, maybe they sold them in Ireland. But as far as I know, they were mostly Australia and UK, and then maybe some parts of Southeast Asia, and China, obviously. And then with this car, I think this was the first car they did it with. They really sort of made a push into Europe. They sort of said, we want some of that European market share, and we're going to get a nice little SUV to do that. And it kind of worked, because SUVs are the way into pretty much any market now around the world. But when I first saw this, I remember thinking I thought it was just like a rebadged Hyundai iX35, which was a sort of very forgotten car now from the early 2010s. Well, I think it was, the intention was it was supposed to be a replacement for like I can't remember what it's called, the Tucson or is it the Tucson? I think, no, I'm trying to think, the Santa Fe Tucson and another one. And I think they were trying to rebrand everything with the I branding, because like all their cars stopped being Accent or whatever, in the UK at least, and most of Europe, and started being like i10, i30, blah blah blah. But once it was gone, they never replaced it. It just went back to being like the Tucson and the whatever you call them. Come on. So yeah, I thought it was that car. I thought it was just a rewind one of them, but it's not. It's like actually, maybe they were a bit inspired by it, but it's only really the window line, the window shape that is very similar. And also because the base models have, I mean, this model in the game, I think has the larger, like, I think they had 17 or 18-inch alloys, but the real base model in real life had quite small wheels. And that was very similar to the iX35, which had very small wheels and looked quite like a big sort of, I don't know how to describe it, but you know when a car just looks like a child drawing of a car? Oh, I tapped the back. Any damage? No damage. But this blue colour, I think in real life it's called Battersea Blue, is one of the signature colours of MGs. They sell I don't think they sell the MG4 in it though, actually. Maybe they do. I don't think I've seen it in this colour. But they sell the ZS and the MG3. The new MG3. I don't know about the old one. I think they sold the MG6 in this colour as well. But yeah, they're kind of like, I mean, they're part of, so MG is owned by a Chinese company called SAIC, which is a big conglomerate, like big conglomerate of that just like own everything, like lots of brands, and they make cars and they partner with other brands to make cars in China. I think they do Volkswagens maybe, and Audis. They make them in China to reduce the costs. And then these they make and they sell under a brand that they own, because they obviously don't own Volkswagen or Audi brand, but they do own. I think that, you know what? I think they own all of the old British brands that were under British Leyland. I think. Well, no, not the ones that broke off and became independent, but anything that was owned by MG Rover when it went bankrupt or went into administration in 2006, I think is. No. No. Yeah, that's what I need. Need a rewind feature. Oh well, it doesn't matter. Photo mode. Right. It is quite handsome actually on these wheels. But yeah, so I think maybe like SAIC actually own like Austin and Morris and things like that. That'd be funny if they brought back bring back the Maestro. I would absolutely die for that. Seriously, I would be 100% here for a Maestro special. I'm just going to make this to try and give it a little bit more drama. Depth of field controls. Oh, I need to also do camera speed. Needs to be fast, and I would certainly love a Maestro for this game if someone models one. Obviously, I've got absolutely no right to ask for it because what would this even do? Much? Not really. But oh well. Obviously, because modders have absolutely, they can do what they want. But if anybody did want to mod a Maestro Montego, I would love it. One, because I think they would absolutely be destroyed in crashes because they look paper thin. I think that was always the problem with them. They looked very tinny. But also, I think like brands like Wolseley, like old-fashioned luxury Wolseley, or Van den Plas, maybe even. Trying to think what else would have been under there. Riley. Imagine them bringing back a Riley Elf as like a little electric car. That'd be so funny. But yeah, anyway, what was I? I was babbling on about something. I mean, it isn't that fast a car now that I'm looking at it. But yeah, I mean the newer cars they do. So like I said, the MG3 and the MG6, the first gen ones, were very criticised in Britain, and then even this, and then I think the MG HS came out, which is like a sort of slightly larger SUV, was also pretty criticised as like, you're buying it for its price. You're not going to buy it because it's a nice car. But then I've seen the reviews for the new HS and the new ZS, and they seem to be, I mean, they look like much better and more modern cars. This still looked a little bit like inspired by, like I said, a previous gen, whereas those like the HS and the new ZS, they look modern, and the new MG3 as well. And they've all got much more of a family resemblance now as well, so they're sort of and I mean they've even bought like the MG a two-door Roadster, the MG Cyberster. What a horrible name, but but it has like gull-wing doors or something, like really, like not gull-wing doors because it's a convertible, but they like fold out over the like over the windscreen. Madness. But it goes back to MG's heritage. They were like the roadster company. Like they basically sustained British Leyland through some dark days with their MGB exports to America. And it lived on way too long. They even kept it going, like brought it back in the early 90s as an RV8, like a V8 version of the MGB with like coloured bumpers and everything. Oh, fifth! Get in! Only 4 seconds quicker than the BMW 5 Series. But still a decent 13 seconds behind the Superb. So, but that means we've got China in the top 5 now. That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Change configuration. I mean, we'll see. The next one that I have in mind to do, I don't think it's gonna do that well. It's another budget car, but from a different era. Come on. Oh, or maybe I should do the... No, because I've done an SUV, so I'm not going to do the X5. Where are we? The Lada. We're going to do a Lada Samara. It's called a 2108 here. I guess that's what it was called in Russia, but in the UK and I guess most of Europe, it was called the Samara. Quite a nice name. But this is a slow car. I think this is a 1.3. Maybe 1.6, but I have low expectations of this because it's one of those cars that, like, even if I get it around the course, it'll just be so slow. So even if I don't crash and I'm perfect, it'll just be a slow car. But yeah, so that this was like what MG is now, which is like budget brand, but actually MG, because they're so cheap to make because it's mostly done in China. They can push the luxury side of things, and so they got lots of tech and all of that, whereas say 30 years ago or well even 40 years ago now, like I think this was about 1985, 1986, this is what a budget car would be. And bear in mind, whoever modeled this put rear headrests in, but I don't think it would have had rear headrests at the base models. And this is what you'd get for your money in the 80s. Lada Samara. So we've done the Lada Riva in a previous video, and that was like I did the estate version, but like the car itself was based on like a Fiat from like the early 60s, I think. And I think they kept making that Lada Riva until like the 90s, early 90s. But this was its basically modern replacement. So it was developed in the 80s and like modern front engine design, styling inspired by European hatchbacks. And you'll notice it looks very similar to the Hyundai Pony, which was basically exactly the same thing, but Korea were doing it. Basically trying to make a car that appealed or could stand against its own in Europe. But I think the Pony was actually designed by a European styling house, whereas the Lada, I think, was just in-house by Lada. I feel like maybe even the original Pony was designed by Pininfarina or someone like really out there. Because there's a couple of cars, because I remember Skoda Favorit Skoda Favorit was like their big rebrand in the early 90s, and that was also, I think, designed by a proper Italian styling house. And it has a similar-ish look to this. But that's what that's what being inspired by European cars was like back then. We all came to the same conclusions. But yeah, I mean, it isn't. I mean, I don't really know it. I mean, all Ladas have like their fan bases and they're people who like really like them, but I don't remember this one really having the same notoriety as the Riva. Because the Riva really was like an old car, whereas this was just like a sort of maybe even the worst of all worlds, because it was modern but still felt it didn't have any sort of old retro charm, which the Riva did. And like I said, the Riva was fun to drive when I did it around here, because it's rear wheel drive, so it's it's got quite a bit going for it, whereas this is front wheel drive, not very fast. Sort of modern dynamics, so it probably isn't going to set the world on fire. I do remember seeing these about when I was a kid, though. Rare though. I don't remember them anywhere near as much as the Revas. And I think in the UK, I only remember 5-door cars. They did do a 4-door version, but I doubt they brought that to the UK. Maybe other parts of Europe. I mean Russia, obviously. And this is the 3-door version. I can't remember if I ever remember seeing 3-door versions in the UK. But yeah, Lada was a budget back in the 80s. Like your budget cars back then would be coming from the Eastern Bloc or Russia or Soviet Union, basically, because they needed to export. They needed exports a lot of the time to try and bring in currency, and car exports were good because cars were massively in demand, and they could build them really cheap. But they were often, I mean, let's take a look at what cars we're talking about here. We've got the Lada Riva, the Lada Samara, FSO Polonis, Trabant. Well, no, they didn't dare sell that abroad, I don't think. Or maybe they did. I know that Yugoslavia wasn't part of the Soviet Union, but it was another cheap Eastern Bloc country. Not Eastern Bloc, but just a cheap communist dictatorship from the 80s, where they sold their Yugo. I don't even know what they were called. But again, they partnered with Fiat at various times, and I think the last car they ever made, Yugo, was the Sana, which was based on maybe being semi-based on an Uno or Tipo platform. It looked like a modern car as well, actually, but well, then Yugoslavia collapsed and the factory got caught up in the war, so I don't think the brand exists at all. And of course, there was Dacia. Now Dacia, I don't know if they exported cars back, but again, they use old Renaults. So like, I mean, basically, nowadays what we get from Chinese cars is they've pretty much through the 90s and the noughties, they basically subsumed all of the technology from the West, and now they build pretty good cars. I say pretty good, but like you get reviews, and the reviews will either like point out that they're quite cheap still. They still lack a little bit of that refinement, but honestly, I feel like car reviewers would compare everything to like the best of the best, and then everything comes off bad compared to that. Like sometimes they'll review a car that's like explicitly a budget car, and they'll be like, "Oh, there's no powered tailgate." You're like, "Of course there isn't. That's a modern thing that only exists on luxury cars." Who the hell thinks a powered tailgate is something to mention in a car that costs like 25 grand? Ridiculous. It's something to mention if it has it because it's unusual. It's not like something to hold against the car for not having it. That was a bit of a rant, but honestly, actually, I'm being facetious, really. I understand why when you're trying to fill space and time, you kind of you tell people things about the car that might be interesting to them. But yeah, you rarely come across. I'm trying to think of examples of. So whereas nowadays you'd be like, wow, if you went and saw like a new MG ZS, you'd be like, wow, this car's got like lots of kit. It feels quite plush inside. You might put it side by side with a Citroen or even some recentish Ford products like an EcoSport, whatever they called it, and you might say, oh, it actually doesn't feel as it feels perhaps equal. And like the ZS, for sure, the new ZS has been getting lots of praise for its driving dynamics, and the engine being quite peppy, and so with that kind of thing. Oh, oof. Okay, Samara, you're on the bend. Whereas I don't think 30 years ago, I think 30 years ago nobody was saying, "Wow, I can't believe you get windscreen wipers with this Lada or Skoda." Skoda Estelle, oh my god, yeah, my auntie had one of them. I think there might be a mod for that in this game. I remember seeing it years ago. Um, rear-engined, rear-wheel drive saloon. My auntie had I think I remember it was either purple or poo brown, or somewhere between the two. Um, but yeah, even looking, there was never really any surprise. Like the surprise was if you compared, say, the cheapest, maybe the UK version of a cheap car built in Europe would have been something like maybe a Citroen 2CV. I think they kept making that to the 80s. Or you'd get like Reliant Robins or maybe a Reliant Kitten that were like fiberglass cheap cars. Um, but you wouldn't take them on the motorway or anything like that. Whereas these cars, the Ladas and the Skodas back in then, they were cheap, but they were proper cars. They weren't like mopedy cars. I don't know what you call them. Quadricles. Ooh, that's quite nice, isn't it? Bit of a sun reflection. Oh, no, I ruined it. Okay, no, I'll do it on the back screen. So that way, yeah. Dun dun dun. Okay, right. Well, depth of field I should do. Get the car, and then there we go. No, I should. The sun should really be coming from the front. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I'll have to get rid of that nice reflection instead, so the car looks more visible. And I think I need to blur the background a bit more. And whatever this does. Oh, it adds a bit more contrast, I suppose. There we go. I should do another one just for posterity. Ooh, not too much. Right, normal. There we go. Oh god, look how bright it is now. I can't remember if are we. No. I thought we were really near to the end. Then I was like, oh my god, 7 minutes. I'm gonna get the best time with this. No. We're still ages away. But yeah, I can definitely remember reading a car magazine archive article about. I think it was a Lada, a Skoda Estelle. I can't remember if it was a Samara or a Riva, the Lada, and then I think maybe it was like a Reliant Robin. It was like, oh, here's what budget cars and what the cheapest cars you can buy are. I feel like the Skoda won. Or maybe no one won. But yeah, they were very harsh and critical. In a way that they're kind of not. It's hard to be now, like, a lot of the times you feel when they do comparisons, they're nitpicking to be like, okay. But also, like, if you compare, say, MG4. Oh, shit. Fuck. That's done it. Okay, we're near the end now anyway, so. But I recognise that the half shaft's broken. No. Damn it. No. Can't continue with a broken half shaft. Now I have to try and fill another lap talking crap. I'll do it. Oh, what was I saying? Yeah, like nowadays, say, if you look at reviews for the MG4, that's like an electric car, they're actually pretty. I mean, it seems to be considered like one of the best electric cars you can buy, and it's very competitively priced. And obviously, everyone's going to be like the reviewers are like, obviously, you get more quality from a Tesla or like the E, whatever you call it, the electric versions of the Peugeot 308 or something like that. But you get so much for a reasonable price with the MG4 that it makes it an amazing buy. And that's the thing. That's what Chinese cars are doing quite well. It's like they can offer a lot for not much. Or, well, it's not that it's absolutely cheap. Like, I think an MG4 is still like, you can maybe get the base model for just under 30 grand, but they're still pricey. They're not absolutely cheap in a way that like this would have been. But they, relative to what they can offer compared to the price, is what makes them at really good value. Because like you've always got to remember, like a brand new car can be competing against a second-hand car. So like in the 80s, the reason like Lada Samaras and Ladas everybody didn't just go out and buy one of them is because lots of people would have just gone out and bought a second-hand Escort or Astra, because it just had, even a second-hand one had more credibility and more street cred for sure than a brand new Lada or Skoda would have. Whereas now, I mean, for a start, there aren't that many. If you were in the market for a car with electric cars, that's the thing. It's kind of, because they still feel like new technology and people are still worried about taking them on. If you get a brand new one, you can just get on a lease deal and then you have it for 4 years and then give it back, basically. Whereas if you buy a second-hand one, you're taking it on and you're taking on the risk that the battery breaks and it's going to cost you however many thousands to replace it. And that's another thing, like Chinese brands offer like 7-year warranties. I mean Korean brands have done that for a while. I think Kia, is it, that's been doing the 7-year warranty for bloody years. But that kind of thing makes them attractive first, like brand new cars. Whereas you really, in the 80s, I don't think warranties existed. I mean, no, they did. They definitely did, because it was what was bankrupting British Leyland. All the warranty requests on their cars, because they were leaving the factory with so many issues. And well, ultimately, it's why people stopped buying British cars. Well, not even that they stopped buying them; they just never really started, because the UK came to the European community late, so it hadn't made the inroads into the market. And then when, like, if you got tariff-free Renaults and Volkswagens coming into the UK, and then at that exact time, British Leyland just happened to be offering like the Allegro or the Maxi, and it's like, yeah, the rest of Europe ain't interested in those cars, sorry. Trying to make sure that I don't pump the brakes too hard so that I don't lock them, because obviously there's no ABS in this car. Obviously, I don't think any. Well, maybe because Lada's still around today, but I don't think they officially export to any Western European countries. I've definitely seen Lada Nivas being sold. Secondhand. I don't think I've seen any of the like 90s Ladas that they did. Like, I think they did a joint venture with Chevrolet for a little SUV, and I think now they did a joint venture with Dacia, probably dead and buried now. But I guess if they've got the tooling in Russia, they'll just keep making them. I think that was for the first, or the second gen Sandero. Well, no, the first gen Logan, I think, actually. But there's definitely ones you see all the time in Russian car crash videos that they never exported. There's like a very 90s looking hatchback and saloon. I don't know the name of them, but they actually, I actually think they look quite nice. Almost like a Fiat Tipo, but with a slightly rakier back end. They very much look like a sort of someone took the Samara and like made it a modern version of it. But yeah, I've never ever seen any of them in Western Europe. I don't think, yeah. And now, yeah, obviously, nothing made in Russia is going to be sold in Western Europe. But the Ladas still, they have their fan bases. Like there's collectors, there's owners clubs. Anyone of a certain age who sees like one of a Lada Riva is like, oh, that brings me back. Like as I said, my dad had one. So whenever I see a Lada, I'm like, oh. But then also whenever I see like the Fiat they were based on, I'm also like, oh. Because I think Fiat sold that platform like to everyone, because Seat did a version of it. I think Simca maybe even did a version of it. So many brands that don't exist now. I mean, Seat still exists, but it's on life support. I'm pretty sure once the Ibiza and the Arona are gone, that's it. It's gone. Because they don't make the Tarraco anymore. I think the Ateca is done. Or maybe they're still selling the Ateca because they've got stock left. But I think their bread and butter, the only ones that are still actually being made are the Arona and the Ibiza. And yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a replacement for those currently. That's definitely going to be a Seat. They might just put them under Cupra. Because I know there's an ID2 or is it an ID1 that forms the basis of Volkswagen's electric cars. And that will be the Super Mini variant. Or, well, it'll probably be a Super Mini SUV. So like an Arona size car. And that's probably going to be the Volkswagen replacement for the Polo and the T-Cross, I would imagine. I don't know. Maybe they'll keep their two separate lines going, but I don't know how much sense it makes to have for a brand to have like a dedicated electric range and then a sort of petrol but also electric range at the same time that doesn't fit into that brand. So yeah, maybe we'll see. Maybe Seat will be gone and just become Cupra. I mean, if it's just a matter of rebranding, it's not that big a deal. Like Cupra, for anyone who sort of knows about cars, Cupra is the sport brand of Seat, so it's not. Don't you catch me out? I don't need to take another picture. Was that where I crashed? I hope that was where I crashed. Because now I'm terrified. I've still got the possibility to crash in the same place. Absolutely no mid-range power or up-range power. Literally all the power is when you're like accelerating from 0 to 40, and beyond that it's like no. I feel like the crash was somewhere around here. No, it wasn't. No, because we're already at 9 minutes, so we must be nearish to the final hairpin. Come on! Pretty sure we're on a downhill, and it's still going super slow. I really don't want to screw this up. So I'm like, because you gotta remember, like, this doesn't have ABS. So if I do reach that emergency situation and slam the brakes on, there's a very good chance I'm just gonna lose control of the car and it's gonna skid into the wall. And yeah. Funnily enough, the few times I've taken this car out in BeamNG, it really is quite weak. Like whenever I crash that front end, it breaks the half shaft. Which is ironic because I think the launch advert of this car in Europe was like a wrestler basically rolling the car over on its roof, like onto its side, then onto its roof, and then back onto its other side, and then back over, and like demonstrating how it hadn't broken, like none of the glass was broken or anything. I don't know how real that was, but like, you know, one of one of Lada's sort of marketing things was like, we make cars for Russia, which means they're really, really strong because they have to be because of the winters. I mean, the snow there is like in winter is pretty insane, and then I guess, well, if you've seen dashcam videos of Russia, you know the roads, the intercity roads can be quite brittle. But yeah, whenever I've had a small accident in this in Beam, it's I mean, again, that could just be the model, so. It's not an unattractive car, but I do think it's like everything's so deliberate about it. It doesn't have flair. But I've actually had fun driving this. Look at that, 11.5 minutes. Oh, we'll be lucky if we get in the top 10. But with that said, I think I've driven it pretty well this lap. Maybe been a bit over conservative on some corners, like there. But my feeling is, yeah, this was never top 5 material. Like, yeah. 21. That's bad. I mean, I'll be honest, at times then I thought that car was going quite fast. But 21 is... Where does 21 put us? It puts us among... Who's in front of us? Peugeot 405. Okay, that was a fun car to drive, actually. And beyond that is the Audi A3. Okay, I mean, what's that? We're 12 seconds slower than Audi A3. I don't think that's too bad. Slightly faster than the Dacia Logan MCV. That's not bad at all because that's a base. That was a base estate. Basically a sort of modern-y version of that. Like I guess sort of base model of a really budget car because that I think that Logan, previous gen Sandero Logan, are like the last of the real budget Dacias. Now they're like, you know, they got ideas above their station. No, and I'm fine with it. I think Dacia's a really cool brand. Oh, and I did better than the Clio as well. That was a modern Clio as well, and that's a 1.2. No, I didn't record that one. Better than the 1.4 Golf. That's interesting. Now, I can't remember that one, but I'm guessing I crashed that at some point, or it wasn't very good because that should theoretically, but it would be a lot more heavier because cars are heavier. Oh, better than that bloody terrible Lexus that I crashed into every wall imaginable. Okay, well, you know, I'm happy with that. I will say, I'm happy that like I demonstrated modern Chinese budget car with the ZS, and then 80s Russian budget car with the Samara, and I'm proud of that time for the Samara. I don't think I could do better than that. I don't think that car could do better than that. I'm sure someone could probably get it under 11 minutes. Oh, also, I've realised that there is another time that like there's like a slight difference in how it records time. So I've just been counting total time, which is from when it says start, but it can also it also counts it from when the from when I pass the line. I think I don't know actually because the times are only like milliseconds different. I have no idea then what that time is. Well, I'm fine with that. I don't think it doesn't change anything, does it? No. What's the pickup? The 7th pickup, Dacia Duster. Okay, yeah, that's the one. Okay, so I've got the Dacia and the ZS is 5th now. That's pretty. I'm happy. I'm content. I'm content that I managed to get one into the top 5, and it's a Chinese car as well. First of many, I hope. And I really want to do like an electric car around this, but I don't want to download a Tesla because I don't want to do a Tesla at all. I need to figure out what other models there might be that they've got that someone might model an electric car. I was trying to look for BYD the other day, couldn't find it. This MG, they do have an electric version, but it's the whoever made this didn't model it. That Lexus, I think, was supposed to be a hybrid, but I didn't feel it when I was driving it. Let's see. People are modeling new things all the time, and I'm sure there might be a BeamNG.Drive, whatever they call it, the electric ones. So I might give that a try in the next one. I imagine an electric car, even a crap one, should be pretty pacey, should be pretty good. On the maybe top speed wouldn't be very high, but should be really good at accelerating out of corners and stuff like that. But then with a weight, maybe it's not so good going through the corners. I don't know. Let's see. I'll keep an eye out for any mods of electric cars. But in the meantime, thank you. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my talking absolute rubbish and the cars primarily. But bye. Hasta luego.